The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Perspectives. My name is David Schoeneman and I'm your host on this program. On Perspectives, we take a look at a variety of issues here in Nashua that I think voters and taxpayers are concerned with. It's important that all of us make informed decisions as we head to the polls in November. Well, we're in the middle of August, and when you reach the middle of August any year, you know what's coming up. It's back to school time. And as we take a look at the back to school sales and getting kids ready to go, all this sort of stuff, we're always thinking about what's the best opportunity for my child? Where should we be sending our kids? Where do we get, as taxpayers, the best bang for our buck for our educational dollars? Well, with me today to talk about this is Amy Bottomley, who is the director of the Micro Society Academy, a charter school right here in the city of Nashua. It's a very high-performing school. We've had her on before. We're going to get an update, and we're going to talk about the options that are available for the kids at home. Amy, welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about what a charter school is, how long your school has been up and operating, and where the idea of the Micro Society comes from.
Sure. So Micro Society Academy, we're opening our doors for our 4th year. We'll finally be at full capacity for K through 8. Charter schools were developed as a free choice option for families that were public schools. So we still are held to the same standards as a traditional public school. We have financial audits we go through, recertifications. We have to take the same test. State testing, and teach the same standards.
It's called a charter school. Now, what does the term charter mean? Where is the charter for a charter school?
Well, a charter is an agreement between a governing body and the State Department, or the Board of Education. And so it's kind of the contract of what they're going to what the deliverables are on the education we'll be giving kids and how we'll manage operations.
So the charter that exists between your school and the governing body, of course, it's the state. You're chartered by the state, not by the city. Is that correct?
Correct. We're chartered by the state, and we have a board of trustees that oversee the school.
And what school district are you part of?
We're not. We're our own entity. We're our own district.
So here in Nashua, we've got a couple of charter schools that are pretty famous, yours being one, and Academy for Science and Design, which is the high school, or middle school and high school, being another. So those two charter schools, are you linked with the other charter school?
We are not.
Totally
no.
independent?
Totally independent.
And independent also from the Nashua School Board?
Correct, yes.
So we have a school district that has, I think, 17 schools. That are the standard public school. And we have a couple of charter schools, which, as you say, are public schools. They're publicly funded, taxpayer funded. And how would why would a student go there? How would a student end up going to a charter school versus to Amherst Street School or?
Well, I think sometimes, in my experience now, they're seeking an alternative. A lot of times we get students who don't feel like they fit in. They don't have friends. They're a little school phobic or anxious, and they're seeking a smaller school environment. Or they're looking for a different approach to their education. And in the case of Micro Society, we're about real-world application. So students every day have a period where they are learning the whys behind school. They're operating their own ventures and agencies. So we have a government, we have currency and a bank. Every student has a job. So they're really practicing real-world skills, and why it's so important to know how to write effectively or know your math skills and how they're going to use it later in life.
And how is the school doing? You've been in operation now for 4 years, and how are you doing?
This will be our 4th, yeah.
This will be your 4th year. How's it going so far?
So far, I mean, if you're going to compare us on the only measure for the state, and using the Smarter Balance Assessment, which we took our first 2 years, and those are the published results, we are outperforming the state and outperforming the city right now.
based on those test scores. And you have a background prior to being in the charter school. You have a background in regular public school.
18 years of traditional public education, correct?
Okay, so you've seen both, and the regular public school, kids sometimes struggle, or you look at the overall results, and there's some challenges there, certainly. And we look at a charter school, which is kind of an experimental public school. I mean, it is a public school, but it's a chance to experiment a little bit. Schools are a little smaller, maybe a little easier to make some decisions. To what do you really attribute the success?
Well, what attracted me to public schools is I'm a special ed educator first and foremost, and special ed students learn differently. Doesn't mean they're not capable of learning, they just might need a different approach. And so charter schools allow just that, a free choice alternative to learning what everyone needs to with the state standards. And our approach is the micro approach. Other schools might be, arts, integration, or a math and science focus. And it's not one size fits all per se. And this allows a different approach for kids to maybe find that academic success that they might not have in a traditional standard classroom.
And so this is the micro-society approach. It's not invented here in Nashua.
No, it's not a new concept. It's been around since early 80s. It was the first whole school microsociety school was in Lowell, Massachusetts. It was the City Magnet School. My founders were educators, principal, students of the microsociety themed school called the Lowell City Magnet School, and they are the ones that founded the current school here. They're only non-existent anymore because the Lowell City High School needed the facility that they housed their magnet school in the early 2000s. But it's been around. There's over 200 schools in the United States and in Colombia and Canada that are using this concept and pedagogy and having success. So it's not new, it's proven. There's already a developed curriculum and approach. Microsociety Inc. is based out of Philadelphia, and they provide professional development and trainers who push out to the schools to help bring that concept.
So the overall curriculum, you're not defining that here necessarily. It's
Correct.
done, it's part of a family of schools that's got a proven track record. The school is right out here on
West Hollis.
West Hollis Street, thank you.
Yeah.
I drive past it, and I see you've got some new playground equipment out there. You didn't have all of that last year. It's still not a big playground, so there are budget challenges that you have. How much does it cost per year for a child to go there?
So we receive about $7,000 per pupil.
And all of that is from the state?
That's all.
So there's no tuition?
No.
Nothing charged to the family?
Nope. No, we have to make up about $30,000 to $40,000 every year in operating costs. So we have to do that through grant writing, fundraising, donors.
Bake sales, whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of bake sales, but yes, you got the right idea.
Okay, so it's about $7,000 that you get from the state, and are the bake sales included in the $7,000? This is your cost.
No, the per pupil adequacy that we get from the state is the $7,000.
I see.
It costs us more to educate a kid.
Okay.
So it
what
probably
does it cost to educate a child?
We're doing it about $8,500 a student.
Okay.
So we're making up that,
$1,500 per student.
Yeah, we're looking to do that through different ways. Building up a contingency, things like that.
And that compares to the traditional public schools here in the state. They're about 14,000?
Yeah, closer to 15.
Closer to 15,000. Now there's some special ed differences that could account for a portion of that, certainly, but not a doubling.
Not a doubling. No.
Not a doubling. Okay, so the microsociety, it's out here on West Hollis Street, and you got your own facility which you rent. You pay property taxes on.
It's a triple net lease. We pay the property taxes and
you buy your
all
own playground equipment when the time comes. And
all building repairs fall to us as well.
I see a sign out front. You buy your own sign, and that sign says that you're very highly ranked in a microsociety family of schools.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So Microsociety Inc. has a star rating. they 1 through 4, 4 being the highest. And very few schools get the 4-star ranking, but we have been recognized every year since we've been open as one of their top schools. So we are one of their highest ranked schools in the nation and between Canada and Colombia as well.
How would a student get to that school? How would they apply? How would they
So charter
get an
schools in New
education there?
Hampshire are based on a blind lottery. So we have an application process, which includes a paper application, attending an open house. And then once all that's complete, you're entered into our blind lottery. We hold a public lottery. Every child's assigned a number, and it's more or less like picking out of a hat. And based on that is acceptance if we have empty spaces in a class or a grade level, and then we develop a wait list in order from there.
And how many seats do you have for the school in total? Your grades kindergarten through 8, is that correct?
So
this year?
Yeah, so we're right now the Department of Ed is allowing 216 seats, and we will be at full capacity.
So that means that some kids are going to be on a waiting list.
We have kids on a waiting list.
How
So
many-
just for comparison, we had about 30 open seats this year because of adding that new grade.
So total for the school was 30 open seats.
Yes, and we had about 115 at least applicants.
I see. So those who didn't get in, they're on a waiting list if someone
Correct.
moves away or whatever.
Yes, and I'd say we had like 5 or 6 students move over the summer, but that's common for any school to lose some seats over the summer, but we were able to easily fill them.
So you have 216 students, and you're getting roughly $7,000 from the state. If you were to lose, if your number of students were to be below your capacity, if you only had 200,
We would lose funding.
you would lose funding.
Yes.
That doesn't happen in the traditional public schools.
No, they get all their money on July 1st. So in charter schools, we get 4 payments. So the first payment is based on students in their seat on day 1. So that's the number of students you're allowed to submit, and then you get it's about a quarter, approximately, of your 7,000 would show up 2 weeks later. So I don't even have the money on day 1.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then it happens again 2 other times, and then there's one final payment that comes in the summer after the fiscal year is over.
One of the things that we see happen in the traditional public schools, whether it's city demographics or overall population trends, but enrollment is declining. And as we see enrollment declining, we don't see a similar decline in the amount of money that a school department receives. But that's what would happen with your school. If
Correct.
you lost students,
We would lose funding.
you would lose funding. There's one story that we've talked about before when you've been on with me here about a specific case of someone who came from one of the local public schools here, was languishing to a degree, and did really well in your school. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we had a boy from a very supportive family who I think didn't feel like he fit in his traditional school, was that quiet, shy kid in the back of the classroom, self-reports this way, as do parents. And I think through that, it was kind of missed the amount he was actually struggling in reading. And we were able to get him a little more out of his shell thanks to our Micro Society period. He felt a little more successes being in a job and having success and taking risks there, that it eventually translated into the classroom. Because we could say, listen to the risk you took over here in your job, it paid off. Why not try this, new reading strategy we're trying to teach you? And so over time, he got a little more confidence, felt a little more community-based support, and was able to thrive in our environment.
What did it mean to thrive? I remember you saying that that particular class, everyone tested proficient, including that student. And whereas where he was before, he was languishing in a school that was one of the lower performing schools here
I
in the
would
city.
say he probably would have qualified for title services in one of the, in this traditional school. That just means he's about a year behind in reading. And, once he was able to be comfortable in his environment and taste those risks, he was applying the skills and able to close that gap in his reading abilities and come to grade level. And then in a year's time of getting extra remedial support from us, he was able to test proficient. You know, but a lot of that had to do with confidence building.
That's a very interesting point. I heard Senator Avard speak not too long ago about the opioid crisis, of all things, certainly on everybody's minds. And he linked opioid crisis, or the kids who have maybe a vulnerability to sinking into something like that, to their success at school. And as you're describing that, it made me kind of think back to what he said, that some of the confidence that can come with success in school might lift a person up enough to reduce the vulnerability they might have to hopelessness that could lead to who knows what.
Well, and that's what we really hope that our program is showing students, is how to be a good, active, participating citizen and what you can do out, you know, in your adulthood. You know, so they're practicing, you know, jobs. So they're curious of what it is to be a lawyer. They could apply and be a lawyer. You know, to be a police officer. We have peacekeepers who do that. Work at a bank. I mean, there's all these different things they can do. They can try it, decide they don't like it. It gives them a little more direction. Or to be an entrepreneur and show what it is to start a business up. And you know, we have students doing profit and loss statements and understanding that, where a lot of people, the financial literacy, I think, in some of the schools, you know, isn't as strong as it used to be, and we're trying to really hit home with that, because that's an important part of being a, you know, involved citizen and an employee and an adult.
It is, and as I'm listening to you describe it, I can imagine a student who's, it was a long time ago for me in grade school, right? But
Me too.
you know, there were days, when the new school year was going to start, here we are back to school, the new school year was going to start, I was thinking to myself, oh, here we go. This is going to be torture. Something's going to happen that's going to be, you know, it's not going to be a good experience for me. Not overall, but there's going to be something in the year that's just going to be something I don't like. But when there was something that brought a smile to my face or was encouraging, how much that could lift me to the next thing. And I'm sure it's the same for kids today. So whether they're feeling, for whatever reason, like they're not fitting in or not learning or a little bit of bullying or whatever it is, there could be a better alternative for them.
A lot of feedback I get from parents too is that it's just the positive part of their day, that they have something to come home and talk about. You know, a lot of parents will tell me, like, before they came to your school, it was, how was your day? It was fine. What did you do? Nothing. And now they're volunteering what they're doing. It may not be volunteering what they're doing in math class, but it's volunteering what they did in their job. And it fosters the conversation at home. And then there can be that tie-in, well, how does that apply to your math skills that you've been learning? So that's really enriched, you know, the home life and the family conversation, and allows the parents to feel more connected to what's going on in school.
Yeah, that sounds great. It certainly speaks to the importance of success at school. Now, is the charter school for everybody? Should everyone go to Micro Society Academy?
I would say no. I would say, you know, each charter school brings a unique program, which is what's so special about charter being free choice. I mean, it's not one size fits all. And so my program might be better suited, where another charter is better suited for a different type of child and learner. And that's okay. You know, we are just offering a different approach to learning.
Right. I think that having that choice can be an important thing, especially when we see kids like that one you described who really bloomed in a different environment. It's not, all kids aren't the same. And I think that there are kids who have better opportunities or better experiences in one channel or the other, and giving them the ability to choose that would certainly be a great thing. If you were to change your career again and end up back in a traditional public school, what element of what's brought you success at this charter school would you want to bring back to the regular public school?
Well, I think for me it's that, you know, that real world application can really benefit in a traditional district school. And then in fact, there are traditional district schools using micro concepts and pedagogy in their districts. Yes, in fact, I am now a trainer for Microsociety Inc., and I'm working with a county school district in Logan, West Virginia, which is very rural, underprivileged community, and they're trying to bring some kind of programming to the children to let them know why school is important. And they've found micro, and I've been pushing in to bring this to their schools as a pilot. And so this is an example of a traditional public school embracing this concept and seeing how it can actually affect and make a difference. And they're hoping that they're going to reach more kids, see attendance, turnover, and see an increase in that, and hopefully, and then we're very data driven in what we're doing as well. It's not like we're just playing house every day or what have you. There's meaning and purpose, and it's tied to standards, and we have goal focus, just like you would at a traditional school, but we hide it through the micro society period. So, for example, this school I'm working with, they want to boost their reading scores, and so one of their agencies is going to be a reading-based venture agency. So students are getting that added exposure, and then they're going to have pieces that they're going to focus on in each business that has a reading component to it. So it's like getting another push of this academic skills in the micro block. And so it's very purposeful in what we do, and trying, depending on what our population's like and what their needs are like. So that's why it can work in a traditional setting. It's just if we happen to have founders that applied as a charter, and that's why we're here in New Hampshire.
I'm glad to hear that the school down in West Virginia sounds to be receptive. There's often resistance. Well, certainly there's resistance to change. The regular schools can be kind of entrenched, kind of intertwined with politics, certainly whenever there's money involved. And in some cases, there can be a certain level of resistance to change. Now, my understanding is that one of the points about the whole charter school movement was to provide a way for publicly funded schools to be a little smaller, a little more streamlined, to experiment a little bit and find what works well that could then be applied to the regular public school. Did you find any resistance, or how did this other school down in West Virginia come to accept this idea?
So they were looking at a PBIS model, which has to do with positive behavioral enforcement and stuff like that. And so they were looking on how they could reach kids, and they came across the micro philosophy. And reached out to Microsociety Inc. And it does go hand in hand with a lot of different things. PLC.
What's PLC?
Professional learning communities.
Okay.
Because again, with the data driven and stuff like that, along with the PBIS and doing behavioral supports, all that can blend and meld with the micro concepts, which is what's so nice. It can adapt to the needs of your kids, your school. I wouldn't say one micro school looks the same. It doesn't. It's a very adaptable program to meet the needs of your population. So that's kind of the beauty of our concepts. But yeah, the West Virginia schools were looking to do something and just thought it would go hand in hand, and it does.
I see.
And so we're melding the two programs together. We're developing goals, and we're going to be monitoring, measuring the data, analyzing it as a year to see if the program's effective, and make changes where needed.
So in that case, for that program to be expanding into West Virginia, it's not something that your organization took to try to sell to them. It's a need they recognized in their own community. Was it parent driven, do you think, or was it school?
It was school driven.
School driven. Okay, so there are obviously various stakeholders. There's the charter school itself. There's the public school. There's parents, and some driver has to exist to bring change.
Yeah.
And in the case down there, it was the school district itself. In the case of Microsociety Academy forming here, it was the founders who came out of that experience who
wanted to bring it to their
thought
children.
there might be something here that would be fertile ground for that school. So, very interesting. Well, it sounds like it's done very well here, certainly, and it sounds like it's going to be expanding in West Virginia and I'm sure other places.
Yeah, there's a lot of different states with success, with schools with a successful micro program.
Sure. In your estimation, just in your knowledge of Nashua, is there room for another charter school?
I think, right now we're the only elementary. There's another, and then there's a high school in Nashua. You know, it just depends on what they bring to the table. We have some in Merrimack, but I mean, again, I wouldn't say there's room for another micro.
Sure, sure.
But they're a different concept that might reach other kids out there.
Right.
Sure.
Because not every kid is the same.
Because not every kid's the same, right? And remember, we're lottery based, so surrounding towns can come. So I might be heavy in Nashua kids, but another school might lottery based be heavy in other towns.
Sure.
You never know. So it's a greater community we're really reaching besides just Nashua.
Speaking about enrollment, though, what percentage of your students are from Nashua?
Right now, I'd say about 80%. It has been the biggest push, have been Nashua residents. Having busing to our school helps a lot. But I think they're also the ones more aware of our program because they're driving by and hearing about it within the community.
So about 80% of the students from Nashua, and again, it's an application process. The parents or guardians fill out an application with the student to apply. Then it's pure lottery. There's no additional cost. And students come in who might be above or below grade, just like in any school. And it's your responsibility as the school.
Yep.
You don't reject the students based on
we have
admission
special ed
tests,
students,
nothing like that.
Students with 504 plans. Yep, no rejection. Nope. Title students that qualify for title services, ELL, we have all of that.
Well, one of the things I always like to do on the show is we're talking about education and educational opportunities is to dispel any myths or rumors. And some of the rumors that exist about charter school are that you charge tuition, or that it's not a public school, or that there's an admission test.
We have small fees like every other public school does, like
what kind of
field
fees?
trips
Okay,
and
field trip
lunches
fees.
and things like
Sure.
that. So
But
common
those
things
are,
like that.
that's comparable, and you're very closely monitored by the state because you're under the state charter, and they want to make sure that you're
we
doing
go
everything.
through a financial audit every year.
Okay. Well, Amy, I'm seeing that we're out of time here, just about. Is there anything you wanted to add? Last, contact information or any tours coming up, anything that if a parent's interested, what should they do?
If they're interested, right now it's probably just wait list, but they're welcome to fill out applications. But if you're interested in your child for the following year, our process for admission starts in January. So you really need to, and that's common for a lot of the charter and private schools. So you really need to be thinking about change in the fall so you're ready to go in the winter for the admissions process.
And then once admitted, it's not a lottery for that same student again the following year. Once admitted, you're in as long as you want to stay.
You just sign an intent to return form with us, and that's it.
All right, good. Well, thank you very much, Amy, for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to thank you folks at home, too, for tuning in. I've been talking here with Amy Bottomley, who's the director for the Micro Society Academy Charter School right here in Nashua. A very successful charter school in the charter school system, and the best elementary school here in the city. As we're facing back to school time and considering where we want to send our children, this is something that we should really consider and take a look at. Charter schools, home schools, regular public schools. Lots of choices out there. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, please reach me at davidshoneman.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.